Hi everybody, Scott here. I'm both a counsellor and an MBTI practitioner. If you'd like to find out more, please visit my website. The link is in the description. So this video is going to be talking about why we can self-medicate. Now this is a request from a subscriber who put this question out there to me. Now I'm going to be answering this question from a Christian perspective, from the point of view that we're all born in the image of God to reflect His image through our unique self that God created. So that's basically the foundation that this will be coming from. Now, a good way to look at this problem is to use a tree as a metaphor, in the sense that it has roots, and then in the branches it can have fruits. Roots being, if we've got healthy roots, we're going to have healthy fruit. If we've got unhealthy roots, we'll have unhealthy fruit. So firstly, it's worth acknowledging that we're born into a fallen world, so something's going to go wrong regardless of how great a childhood or how great our parents are. Just because we're in a fallen world, things are going to happen to us, life's going to happen to us in a way that brings about pain. Now for some people can avoid a majority of the unfortunate pain that can come our way in life when they're growing up, and they can just have more just the circumstances of life that can sort of come our way, like the sun shines on the righteous and the unrighteous. It rains on the righteous and unrighteous. That we all have our good and our bad days, and we all have things happen to us just in the fact that we're in this world. Other people, however, can grow up in very painful circumstances, whether it's the country they live in, or the community they're in, or the unresolved issues of their own parents that then get inflicted onto them. So in some respects, the pain that we can carry growing up in childhood can be immense, or it's all sort of relative in a sense. Somebody else could have what could be considered a very good childhood, but still have insecurities or wounds. So in regards to the roots of the tree, if we experience a common thing that we can experience is rejection. I'd say that's the number one problem that most of us can carry, and that can be through either real or perceived rejection. Real rejection would be straight abuse or neglect. Something that's very obvious and tangible, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, sexual abuse, or neglect that can leave a child feeling rejected. Perceived rejection could look something like parents not understanding the child's love language, for instance, and so tries to love the child with how they feel love, which could be, let's say, it's quality time, and so the parents give the child all of this quality time growing up, and then the child grows up feeling unloved because they're more a gifts person or an acts of service person, and so the rejection's perceived because the parents actually do love the child, in the sense that they are, in their heart they're loving towards the child, they're acting loving towards the child, but the child's unable to receive it as effectively because it's not really their love language. So there can be perceived and real rejection. But without going into them all, there's rejection, there can be abandonment, forms of abuse, and neglect, and so on. So when we have these experiences in childhood more specifically, because we haven't developed very much at all in regards to self-awareness and objectivity and things like that. We usually internalize those rejections or woundings as there's something wrong with us. That, you know, there can't be anything wrong with the world out there. There can't be anything wrong with my parents. Often that's the case because if a child was to have that awareness that actually something's wrong with my parents, then that can be a very threatening thought. And I think children can sort of have a defense against that thought because that's more overwhelming than actually saying, internalizing that maybe there's something wrong with me. And I think for the most part that process goes on almost unconsciously, beyond the level of awareness in a child. So regardless of where it could go wrong in childhood, when it does go wrong, it's usually a child thinks that something's wrong with them, and so then we've got a sort of a faulty self, if you like, is developed, or, you know, parts of the child's personality or memories and so on get shoved down, rejected. For instance, maybe that a child is naturally quite happy and bubbly, and then they get shamed for that bubbliness, and so they end up internalizing and shutting that bubbliness down. So out of that sort of childhood can be like faulty beliefs about the world and about the self. There's something wrong with me. You know, I'm stupid. I'm unattractive. This sort of core belief that is negative in some way, and I would say it's faulty, and in a sense not a core. Well, it can be a core belief, but I would say I like to think of it as though underneath that core belief is the truth, which is that we're made in the image of God, and that we are, by our very nature, acceptable. Whereas, unfortunately, with the nature of the fall and what can happen while we're on this planet, is we can come to see that we feel either unacceptable or parts of us feel unacceptable. So the question is then, what does one do with pain? Because once we move out of that natural state of I am by nature acceptable, when we move out of that into these faulty beliefs that there's something wrong with me, I'm rejectable, I'm unacceptable, now we're going to have some kind of disturbance, some kind of pain. And the question is, how do we deal with that pain? And so for everyone, everybody is unique and different, and so how one experiences the pain, how one comes to have that pain is different, and so how one medicates that pain is different. If the woundings happen in childhood, then because all of this happens quite naturally through the development of the child, it's sometimes hard to see like a pinpoint moment where things change. Sometimes it's like atmospheres of childhood, you know, the way the family functions and things like that brings about pain. So it can be sometimes hard to identify those faulty beliefs or those ideas of self. For some people it's quite easy. They can remember something very specific happening to them that led them to believing something negative about themselves, hating themselves, or rejecting themselves, and so on. So a way of looking at it is, in the early stages, a child needs to cope with the disturbance and with the pain. So that it can firstly happen by just denying parts of the self that are being rejected. That can be where it starts. It can be just simple withdrawing. So, whether that's withdrawing into the self or withdrawing physically, it can be acting out in anger, getting angry at all of these seemingly unimportant issues. That can sometimes be helpful in the sense of if someone's around that is switched on to that, they can see the anger and see that it's disproportionate to what they're getting angry about, or it's happening very frequently. For those that have that awareness to say, okay, anger is a secondary emotion to a primary one. What is going on underneath this anger that they're not in touch with, that they're trying to let me know something is wrong with their by their angry acting out. It can be like, lots of anything can essentially be a way of escaping pain. It could be just slipping into fantasy, television, movies, daydreaming, those sorts of more sort of passive forms of escape. For people that are have more of an addictive nature or a vulnerability to addictions, then it's really a case of once there's pain there and they have that vulnerability, it's a case of life presenting something that they can essentially become addicted to. So for increasingly more and more young people are escaping into pornography and lust and things like that because it's just so available in the culture. For others, it's like around 12, 13, 14 when they might have their first taste of alcohol, and then it just soothes the pain, and they're instantly addicted, and so they become an alcoholic. For others, it might be eventually being introduced to drugs and things like this. So it's like once life presents an opportunity to take one of those substances, then the person takes that substance, whether it's lust through the eyes or alcohol or drugs into the system, and then they're off and running essentially because they've found it feels like they've found a solution to their pain. What ends up happening with all of this, slowly going up the tree, if you like, to the fruit. So we've got those unhealthy roots, hurts in childhood, abandonment, rejection, and so on, leads to a faulty self-image and negative core beliefs about the self that lead to pain, leaves a child vulnerable to medicating that pain in some way. Like even food can be used to comfort pain and so on. And then that combination, if you like, leads to poor fruit in life. So it could lead to problems in relationships, work problems, conflict, financial problems, emotional problems, depression, anxiety, high levels of stress, not being able to cope with stress. All manner of things can sort of be fruit of that kind of foundation. Where it gets even worse, if you like, is that negative fruit creates more pain that then requires, that almost reinforces the negative self-image, that then requires more medicating to escape the pain, and it goes round and around and around. The good news about this is that God seems to give us opportunities to wake up to that. Often growing up we don't know what the problem is. We don't know the origins of the issues. We can even not even think there is a problem. Deep down we've got a solution. We think we've got a solution to pain that we didn't even know we were carrying through addictive lifestyle. And while the pain and of the consequences of the lifestyle are less than, almost like it's less than the pain that's being carried, underlying that behavior, nothing will happen. It seems as though God allows things to happen that bring a person to like a moment of clarity, or come to a place of realizing or seeing that something's wrong, or that they can't keep doing this, something needs to change. And it's really in that moment that it's like it kind of breaks, you could almost say it like breaks the tree open, if you like, and you start to see the truth that lies within. So that can be how and why we can come to medicating ourselves in certain ways. And so I hope you found this video helpful to you. And again, just to let you know, I'm a counsellor and Myers-Briggs practitioner. If you want to find out more, please visit my website. I'll leave the link in the description. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.